All right.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Falcone, and I am the leader of the company Personalized Learning. My team members that couldn't be here today are Jenny, who is in charge of psychology and educational research, and then Kavya and Manjo are our two computer programmers. So there are a couple of major problems in the world that Personalized Learning wants to address, one of them being in higher education. So last year in 2017, there were over 20 million students enrolled in higher education, and as current statistics show, only 60% of them are going to graduate within 6 years, and it's less than 40% within 4 years. And unfortunately, on the other side of things, the professor is generally the one who gets the blame. Generally, students, fellow faculty, and parents all decide to blame the professor for why their student could not meet the expected criteria by the deadline for the exam and why they needed to drop out. On the other side of things, we also see a major issue in corporate training. Corporate training is one of the top 3 biggest budgets for most companies, spanning from small cap to large cap. And the amount of money that is spent on these annually ranges between $209,000 to over $209,000 to over 13 million. And more than half of this budget is focused on high-level executive training for special skills that they need personalized coaching for, and they need very specific mentors spread out across the world to make sure that they are learning most efficiently and quickly. So there are 3 main demographics that we address with our product. We focus on students, giving them a more in-depth and personalized learning experience that will inherently boost their test scores and lower dropout rates. We want to give tools to the professor to allow them to give automated updates on how their students are doing without the professor needing to go individually talk to their 150 or some odd students each semester to know what their class stands before the exam. And large businesses, we want to help lower their annual training budget by making sure that every time that they select a mentor or a teacher to come in and teach their top executives, they know that their executives are being matched with someone that'll teach them the exact way that they want to be taught, and that way they just have to do it one and done, and it's over. So the way that we're going to be doing this is that we're developing a web-based application that's going to be combining psychology, learning styles, and machine learning. So the way that this happens is we take all of the data from the end users. The machine learning software will compile all of them and sort individuals into buckets, and each bucket will be represented with a color. And based off of that color, it'll give suggestions on who you should take for, say, classes, or who you should send to whatever group of individuals, so that way they learn most effectively based off of their data. And for the professor standpoint, the professor will be able to get automatic updates on questions that the system will ask their students on a weekly basis, and then be given that data to see on a graphical scale how comfortable their students are feeling with the material. And then based off of the students' replies, the system will also give a suggestion on how the students want the class to be conducted. And so how we stack up, the only real competitor we have as of right now is Rate My Professor. And in our opinion, Rate My Professor is an extremely biased approach to dealing with education. It offers little to no support for the professor, and it's completely one-sided. It's completely one-sided based off of the individual student's response after taking that class, and the majority of the comments are negative. And so we want to kind of make a software that will allow both the student and the professor to benefit from the situation. This is a snapshot of our financial estimates. So we have multiple revenue streams, and after our initial lump sum costs, we seem to become relatively profitable in the first year, and then in the years preceding, assuming we can either keep the amount of contracts we currently have, or we can even expand that, our profit margins just keep going up. So we become more and more profitable, which will allow us to take more and more money and develop into further solutions for either schools or businesses. Any questions?
I have a quick question. Could you jump to the revenue slide and explain, like, kind of where, I don't need to know, or we don't need to know exactly, but like, how are you breaking down, like, how are you getting that revenue?
Okay, so for the top line, we have that data revenue, which we plan on getting in contact with educational companies like Pearson and McGraw and giving them the personalized results from students traits as far as like what do they find useful from given materials. Do they focus on the PowerPoints that are presented by the book, or do they focus more on the book? Do they enjoy learning at night? Do they enjoy learning on their own? And that will give Pearson the ability to start tailoring all of their additive programs and like solution sheets and things like that to students to be more effective and get more revenue that way. For ad revenue, we plan on the site, we plan on giving a suggestion box, which is students can give, say, reviews on their last, say, exam schedule. They can link items that they used in certain classes and say put an Amazon link, say that like, oh, I used a TI-89 calculator and it was significantly better than the TI-84 because of all the extra solutions. And students that will be in those classes will be given those sources. They'll click on it, and then with the way Amazon works is if you buy anything from that ad revenue site, it scales up, but at the end of scaling up, we eventually will see up to 8% of the initial purchase, as long as that IP made a purchase on Amazon within 24 hours after clicking that link, even if it's not valuable. So that revenue comes from, say if we had UML and every student spent $1 a year, that's how much ad revenue we have. And so even if you only have a couple of students, assuming they're buying something that will get more than $1 of revenue from, that's a pretty low ball number for the ad revenue. Affiliate links, kind of in the same bracket as far as that's more directed with Pearson giving direct links to the students based off of the data that they bought from us, so that way we can just present the students directly everything that the individual companies decided to tailor to using that data. And then the subscription fee is based around what current solutions are available, looking at Blackboard, Canvas, and other CMDs, so that way we can kind of replace their functionality, add in more, and still undercut them in price. And that number is pretty accurate because my aunt used to be the VP at Dean College, and they went through multiple different software that were developed by different companies, and compared to that dollar, for certain subscriptions they were looking at nearly double that amount of money. So it's a very plausible dollar amount in my opinion.
All right, so I got two questions. Yes. So one of the first slides you said that professors, it's known that professors are the problem for why kids drop out of school. So I want to know where that data comes from. So, and then two is, why do I even care about matching up a learning style to what I'm being taught?
So from a couple of news articles in the New York Times, it gave a breakdown on why the majority of students drop out. That's the demographic of dropout rates, and that's in Massachusetts specifically. And roughly 20% of it were because students were not able to meet their academic standings, as in they were not able to pass their classes. And then the next leading one, which I believe was 16%, was due to financial issues. And so we believe that if we can take, say, the 20% of dropouts, 20% of dropouts due to academic-related causes, we can kind of make that, as long as the students are given a more comfortable environment and it's more effective, they'll do that. Why that relates to professors is because of companies like Rate My Professor and different reviewing sites online, where it is very overwhelmingly positive that students just go on to bash professors and then explain that they're the reason why. They like to pass the blame on the professor and explain that that's why they weren't able to do it well, and if they took it with some other professor, they would have gotten an A. So they tell other students to not take that professor, even though they could have just been slacking off. And that's actually because of a personal experience I had with one professor who had a terrible review on Rate My Professor, and then through last minute switching, I was assigned her. Everybody in the class was freaking out because everybody thought she had a 1.2 on Rate My Professor, and everybody thought we were going to fail. And then I ended up with an A, and she was by far my favorite math professor so far I've ever had, and that was kind of what sparked this. And then, I'm sorry, but can you say,
so the second question is so why do I care? Because if I go on in a real job in the real world, I can't choose my boss, but I can rate my boss. So I'm going to have different bosses. So why is this important?
So it's important, in a student standpoint, it's important because the college is getting more and more expensive, and a student is going to have to look at that, especially that's when the financial issue comes into play, is for example, I paid full for college, and I was really debating heavily on dropping out freshman year because I didn't think I was gaining what I didn't think I was gaining enough knowledge to justify the amount of money I was spending. And that once grades become like really overbearing and it becomes, do I really want to try to sacrifice all this extra time just to pass and just to continue adding on to my debt? That's going to make, I personally feel that the more students are comfortable in the classroom, the less likely they're going to really have academics as one of the main reasons why they think about, is it even cost effective for me to go to continue college? And so that should lower the dropout rate for universities, which will increase the amount of revenue that they get, and it will make more students want to go to said university if they know that every time that they go to a classroom, they're going to learn their specific way. Yes?
So I guess I'm kind of piggybacking off that though too, but how deep is the bench within these departments? That let's say we establish that I don't work well with a certain professor, the way that I learn and the way that they teach. How many professors teach that course? I mean, at what point is it the data is no longer going to be of assistance, but I need to take that class and they're the only one that teach it, or it's the only one that works with my schedule? And I would imagine that happens quite a bit, that there's not, maybe some of the intro classes, well, you have multiple professors, but.
Yeah, so for example, like in higher level comp sci and engineering courses, certain classes you only have one professor that teach it, and kind of like going back to like you can't pick your boss. Like odds are, if there's only one person to pick and you're not really doing well, obviously you're going to have some issues in that class. But for the majority of classes that say like Calculus 1 that has I think between 7 and 10 different professors here, the students that are taking, the majority of students that have to take all the intro and core curriculum classes, they will be guided in so that way they at least get the fundamentals down based off of their learning style. And then from there, obviously we can't create more jobs or create more professors, but our goal is to make, of what's available, make every student have the best teacher for them. And so, no, it's not going to be a perfect matchmaking system, but given with what we can do, we want to make it so that way. Given with what we can do, we want to make every student feel like they're in the best situation.
And have you designed what the test would look like?
Yeah, so Jenny has been currently combining we've been making different questions based off of the VARC, the MBTI, the Big Five assessment, and the DISC assessment, yes.
All right, thank you.
So all of those range from different areas of how we perceive people based on either their personality or their habits. That was actually suggested by one of my professors, Olga Tynes, who is a consultant in organizational behavior and who had to work and train people in Xerox for a few years on matching them with how to sell specific units to different clients. And she said that if you had a system that was able to like match me with the specific people that would understand the way that she wanted to explain that situation, she said that would have made everything a lot easier on the consultant's end for training all these people. So that's where a lot of those ideas came from.
How do you get the professors to actually take the test?
So,
Because if you don't have 100% in, it kind of
yes,
undermines
so,
the value proposition.
So we have about a minute left so this will be the last question.
So with the professor rating as far as how they're assigned their color, they are going to be offered the ability to go on their profile and say fill out that themselves, and if they don't want to, and if they say lie on it, the check for it is that any student that is currently enrolled in their class can also rate them if they want to, based off of the learning criteria. So they're very objective, and it's not as if, like if it's heavy on PowerPoint, just because you didn't do well in the class, you can't say that it wasn't predominantly on PowerPoint or discussion based. So it's kind of like a cross-check, so that way even if one party is slacking, there's at least some data for the student to go in and know that like, okay, this is what I'm walking into. And we're also going to link it with the Echo 360 program here, so that way students can watch like a 5 to 10 minute video of a lecture being done by that professor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.